When it comes to Amazon's Wheel of Time, I have never seen a TV show so catastrophically and effortlessly waste the potential of their source material.
Strong enough to have it all.
Too weak to take it!
The Wheel of Time is a crown jewel of fantasy, and here, Bezos and his merry band have decided to treat it with all the disdain of Disney's Snow White remake. Make no mistake, Amazon has no idea what made the original Wheel of Time unique and popular. As a result, the writer and showrunner are constantly under the impression that they can improve the source material, when all they really needed to do to be successful was just adapt the world, character, and themes. But they flushed it all away and transformed one of the most wildly epic and imaginative pieces of fiction into one of the most generic, bland, and sterile adaptations imaginable. We already talked in a previous video how Amazon bungled the Rings of Power show, and now we're going to take a look at how they're making some of the exact same mistakes with Wheel of Time, with made-up BS, pointless mysteries, and just taking a hatchet to the core story. Streaming services were actively looking for the next big show in the vein of Game of Thrones. Fantasy was the hot genre. These streaming services were willing to dump a massive amount of money to bring them to life. Unsurprisingly, Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, they probably killed this show before it ever had a chance to succeed. The problem here is, though, yes, Wheel of Time, it does have a good amount of political drama in it, but it shares a lot more DNA with Tolkien-esque high fantasy. In fact, many saw Wheel of Time kind of as the successor of the genre that Tolkien helped popularize. They really needed to put it on every single cover, where Tolkien pulled from very heavily Anglo-Saxon, Danish, Celtic, and other Northern European myth, and then mixed it with the Catholic influences. Robert Jordan, on the other hand, rooted his world in kind of almost this bizarre mix of European Middle Ages and Eastern philosophy and religion. The very name Wheel of Time was taken from a Hindu concept of the Yuga cycle, I think it is. In novice terms, this deals with time in cyclical ages. There's also some Taoism in there, with a heavy influence from yin and yang. Even the sign, it's not subtle, that becomes the symbol of the Aes Sedai. And there's some clear Buddhism in there as well, because you have reincarnation. Unfortunately, Amazon kind of missed the memo on most of this, and chose to highlight more stereotypical fantasy elements over the fresh new Eastern influences. I don't think Amazon even had that much faith in it to begin with, as they very quickly shifted their efforts away from Wheel of Time to instead dump time, money, and marketing into one of the shallowest pieces of fan fiction I've ever had to endure. This left Wheel of Time out in the cold, where it turned from the biggest epic ever brought to page into just this shadow of its former self. So let's get into this thing. Full spoilers, by the way, for this entire first season. Our show opens with Moiraine telling the story of the dragon, and how he saved the world but broke it, and how a new dragon will rise and come again. She also kind of blames all men for it, so maybe she should have been of the red Aja. And now, is any of this done in a visually interesting way like Lord of the Rings prologue, which provided a good clean look at the backstory and the future stakes? Well, no, not at all. It only lasts for about 3 sentences, and Moiraine is just sort of, getting dressed. Way to start off with a strong hook. This only hurts all the more when you realize that they went with this instead of the killer cold open from the book, where we see the original dragon in his home, raving mad before being confronted by his nemesis, who gives him back his sanity just long enough for him to realize that he has murdered his entire family. And then, in his grief and pain, he creates an entire mountain out of magic as the entire world burns around him. Now that's an opening. But why do that when you can instead watch Moiraine tighten her belt buckle? This whole show costs $140 million. If you're going to burn some cash, here would be the place to do it, okay? Get people invested early, give this world a sense of scale, and make the stakes well defined. After that just thrilling opening, we cut to the Red Aja hunting down the male channelers. This wouldn't actually be that bad for world building purposes, if they didn't, trip on their robes right out of the gate. In this scene, Liandrin says that when a male channeler uses the true source, they corrupt and they contaminate it. This is very different from the book version, which saw magic split into 2 different sources, side in and side R, male and female. Women draw from the female half, while men can only draw from the male half. And it's when they pull from that male half that they are corrupted. For at least this first season, this concept is never even alluded to. They cut it out entirely. Now, what's so wrong with that, you may be asking? Well, the entire world of Wheel of Time is built off this magic system. Robert Jordan had this authentic fascination with gender roles in society and how they differ between different cultures. The entire concept of this world is to upend our world's gender norms and present completely new ones. In the book, the men and women can't agree how to deal with the rise of the Dark One, and a rift forms between them, causing men to attack the Dark One without the women's help. And as a result, the male half of magic is contaminated, and any man who uses it is doomed to go mad. This is a brilliantly, relatively simple concept for when we fast forward thousands of years and gender roles have been completely flip-flopped. Now the women hold the most powerful institution in the world. They're the only ones that can use magic. The most powerful nations are ruled by queens, and even small villages have to answer to women's circles. It's not entirely that simple. I mean, there's a lot of different politics for these different societies, but it allowed Jordan to build entire cultures off of gender roles and how men going mad would influence and form them. It also fit with the core theme of the story, that evil can only be conquered when we put aside our differences and come together. It's a good, clean message. So why did they basically neuter this entire magic system for this first season? Well, the obvious answer is the changing modern day gender theories, both in terms of gender fluidity and the transgender movement. Again, this is a world where men can only be reincarnated as men, and women only as women. Only women can touch the female half of the One Power, and only men can touch their half of the One Power. Though Wheel of Time was fairly progressive for being written in the early 80s, it doesn't completely align with certain modern Western gender theories. And to avoid anyone getting upset about it, I guess, they tried to minimize this. And this is not the story to do that with, because that literally breaks kinda everything. That's the foundation that this entire series is built on. And as we said in the Lord of the Rings video, you can't just rip out the foundation. Secondly, it's not like Wheel of Time is even that out of step. It even has a arguable transgender character in the book, who is a male in a female body who uses the male source. Now, granted, this character is a villain, but this idea could have been extrapolated on if they really wanted to. Instead, they chose to eliminate one of the core building blocks of this world, and with it, perhaps the biggest thing that makes it really stand out from all the others. As a result, when you watch it now, it just feels like more of the same old, same old. There's nothing that jumps out and says, hey, this is new. You haven't seen this anywhere else, because they stripped it all away. Anyways, where are we now? Oh god, we haven't even gotten past the first 5 minutes. Let's jump back to the Two Rivers, where they are pushing women into rapids as part of some sort of ritual. Don't ask me what this is about. This wasn't in the book. You see, most adaptations, especially for fantasy, they struggle on what to cut. Not Wheel of Time, though. No, that's not the problem here. Wheel of Time, yeah, it's cutting stuff, but it's adding a bunch of BS that means nothing for the world that they're in. What does tossing people in a river and going, don't drown, possibly do? Okay, what meaning does that have? Anyways, Egwene, she survives the rapids, and now gets to be considered an adult, and gets to braid her hair. You know, all despite already being a fully grown 20-year-old woman who is sexually active. You're an adult now, though, now that you swam in a river. You see, the characters in the book were around the ages of 17 or 18, because they were supposed to be more innocent, and I think you lose a lot by aging them up. Their initial innocence led to long and satisfying character arcs, where we see these children become full-fledged and capable adults, all over the course of 14 books. Matt here, instead of being this mischievous trickster, is instead turned into this brooding, degenerate gambler who from the start comes from this broken family. It takes easily one of the most likable characters from the novels and kind of turns him into one of the most unlikable characters here, because he's just kind of a empty cynic. And Egwene, she's less of this snotty know-it-all who has to learn humility. She is already a fairly level-headed woman from the get-go. Worst of all, we're seeing this very much undermine Rand's arc, who goes from innocent sheep herder to heroic lord to mad king to a final journey of enlightenment. Here, the show is almost wanting to start them at their end point of the series rather than their beginning. This was a choice even backup author Brandon Sanderson groaned at, because none of these characters are given room to grow, and they all become flat and boring. In regards to Perrin, Sanderson basically said, hey, if you're going to kill his wife, you actually have to address that. You can't just kill her and then have him go on this adventure and not actually have it come up and impact him in heavy ways. It's a massive change, and they don't really address it in that way.
One of my big fights with the showrunner has been, he's like, well, this is how we do it in television. I'm like, but this is how we do it in long form storytelling. What you're making should be more like the long form storytelling rather than the episodic television that is his background. That's what he knows how to make. I want them to write an entire season, workshop, get those scripts good, and then film that. And I don't see that happening a ton.
Nynaeve, she was perhaps my favorite character in the book, as this hot-tempered and often petty and egotistical braid puller. A woman constantly face-planting, and her injuries almost always self-inflicted because of her temper. However, it has a catch that when she gets angry, she gets more powerful. Okay, she's kind of basically Magic Hulk. Yet her bluntness, it often acts as this double-edged sword, and to be as helpful as it is a hindrance. And they're coming close-ish with her, but they've drastically toned down her personality to the point where she basically just comes off as a little cranky. She gets less pie-in-the-face moments, but also gets far less moments to shine. Again, I don't like being an endless Debbie Downer, so I did actually like most of their cast. They all seemed like talented young actors and actresses. And some of the picks, especially for Moiraine and Lan, they're exceptional. They're great people for their roles. It's more how they're written and the dialogue they are given. Peter Jackson knew that the dialogue was kind of a big part of the flavor of the books, and he kept a lot of the dialogue and verbiage from the novels. I can think of only maybe one line that made it from the book over into the actual show.
The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend.
The rest of the dialogue was all rewritten and modernized to either this hyper-melodramatic, generic fantasy slop, or some of the most just banal, just CW teen bickering.
Do you want me to just go back to the way everything was?
No,
Because we can't. You made your decision.
I've told you this.
And then what? Why should we trust you?
One of these would be bad enough, but these two put together, they never really gel and certainly don't feel like they fit with the time. Anyways, Rand arrives in town with his girlfriend for sexy time. His father even gives him a little bit of advice that I'm pretty sure that he stole from Gandalf.
All we can do is the best we can with the life that's given to us.
All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us.
I'd say they should sue, but Amazon now owns both the rights, so I'm pretty sure they don't care about ripping off themselves. Lan and Moiraine arrive, everyone has a little dance, and ox-like monsters called Trollocs arrive to kill the mood of the entire party. Thankfully, Moiraine, she is able to dispatch them with some pretty particle effects. And I'm just going to say, I'm not a big fan of how magic is shown in this show. In the books, unless you can channel, most people can't even see weaves. So they pretty much just see the effects. Like, if someone creates a lightning bolt, they can just see the lightning bolt. Or if they just make a fireball, they can only see the fireball. The show could have saved a lot of money when it's not in the magic user's point of view. Also, having the weaves just be like this weird, ugly mist, it just looks lazy. Like something I could do in the afternoon in After Effects. This was also the point where I realized how clean and sterile this world really is. This is a small, remote medieval village, and even in the middle of a fight, everything is so clean. Costumes are pristine without even the smallest torn seams. Every building looks like it was built yesterday, which, let's be honest, it was. And all the roads are like perfectly groomed out and look great, even though they're made out of dirt. There's like not a single pothole in one. Where is the dirt? Okay, that seems like a weird thing to want, but give me that dirt. Go take those clothes, throw them in the mud, hang them out to dry, and then beat them with a stick. All right, then they're gonna look like something from the medieval ages. I feel like I'm watching Shakespeare in the Park.
Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
Rand and his father had returned home, and they're attacked in their house. Rand then has to drag his injured father back to town to be healed. Moiraine then explains that the Trollocs attacked because one of them is the Dragon Reborn. Egwene and Nynaeve, they're included in the possible people that could be the Dragon Reborn. Now, there's a lot of additional problems that come with this. First, Rand was revealed as the dragon to the readers very early in the novels, basically like the 3rd chapter or something. Rand doesn't know that he's the dragon, but the readers, they definitely do. It's made pretty obvious and clear. Here, the show, it's treating it like it's some big mystery, like, whoa, it's time to play Who's That Dragon? It's Rand! This means to keep the big mystery going, they have to take Rand, who is the main character in the first 2 novels, and he ends up being put on the back burner so it can stay a secret. As a result, he becomes the most bland and underdeveloped character in the entire first season. And so, since they basically removed the main character out of his own story, what did they do to compensate? Well, sort of by making it an ensemble, but also sort of making it, Moraine the main tissue holding everything together. This would be like if you were adapting Lord of the Rings and someone told you, hey, we should make it so that who has the ring is a secret. Then it'll be a big surprise. So we're going to make Gandalf the main POV character first. Then we're just going to keep teasing the entire time. Like, ooh, who has the ring? Is it Merry and Pippin when they get captured? Oh man, Sauron must have the ring now. They're so screwed. But surprise, it's actually Frodo getting ready to leave on the boat. This is going to surprise everyone. They'll be shocked. They won't be able to believe it. It's just silly, and it's stupid, and it's made all the worse that they do the exact same thing with Sauron in the Rings of Power show, playing out a dumb, pointless, and obvious mystery for an entire season, when pretty much anyone viewing figures it out in like 4 seconds. And beyond wasting our time with a mystery, making the dragon able to reincarnate into different genders breaks the world and the story entirely. Let's just think about this for a second, okay? If the dragon could be female, it would be absolute chaos, because you would have countless female Aes Sedai claiming that they're the dragon reborn. Or there'd be constantly paranoia in the White Tower for who could possibly be the dragon reborn. Just endlessly. The tower would have collapsed thousands of years ago. It would create chaos and sow distrust in the White Tower. Secondly, the dragon's return wouldn't be as dreaded and feared if people thought it could possibly be a woman. Knowing it has to be a man that could possibly go insane and destroy the world, that terrifies everyone. That's the thing about this prophecy. It is a chosen one story, but people don't know if the Dragon Reborn is going to save the world, destroy it, or do a mix of both like he did last time. And lastly, many sects of Aes Sedai will be encouraged to never acknowledge a male dragon, especially the Reds. Now, I'm not saying these aren't interesting things, okay? These could be interesting directions to take it, but the show, it's ignoring all the major ramifications of making this choice. Anyways, our mystery dragons leave 2 rivers with Moraine, as the dark forces try to chase them down. Moraine even sinks a ferry and kills a ferryman in a scene that I think is supposed to make us think Moraine's more sketchy and untrustworthy. I'm wondering what this dude's plan was. He saw there was a whirlpool there. It started before he jumped in, so he was going to fight the whirlpool, get his boat, somehow paddle it out of the whirlpool, and then swim to a shore that's clearly full of monsters? I don't know. Maybe. Oh, and they leave without Nynaeve, because she got kidnapped by the evil army. It's a good thing she wasn't the dragon and killed or taken. That would have made everything fairly embarrassing. I would really like to know at this point if any non-book readers had any idea what was going on or what the stakes were. And I'm just talking about simple ones here. Do they have any concept of who is the Dark One? And who is the dragon? What did the dragon do that was so bad or so good? Because none of this is really explained in the opening. They do later on, but the stakes feel ill-defined right now for newcomers. Now, if only they had some sort of, storyteller character, and maybe could have set this stage. But that's probably wishful thinking. No character like that exists. Back to our story, they all decide to take a little nap, where Rand has a dream of Ba'alzamon where he vomits bats. This was actually pretty good, pretty gross scene. I liked it. And it is close enough to the books. Rand blames Moraine for this in this temper tantrum that would have been much, much better if they went with like a 17-year-old and not a 25-year-old man. This here is also where they, for some reason, decide they're going to lay the groundwork for the most pointless love triangle ever between 3 characters where none of them are going to even end up together. Good use of your time there. The next day, they meet the White Cloaks, and one of them gives Moraine this really weird back rub for some strange reason. I don't know why I caught that. It was just weird to me. I didn't like it. Don't do that. But do you know what will never give you an unwanted back rub? Well, this channel, of course. So be sure to like and subscribe.
Don't tempt me, Frodo. Get away!
There's actually a good scene I like right after that, where it's just Moraine riding on her horse and telling them a story that's actually from the book. Don't get used to that feeling. We are reaching the end of anything recognizable. They're chased into the dead city of Shadar Logoth, and again, the creepiness of this city is really kind of toned down. We just kind of get the shadow and Matt picking up a random dagger lying around, which I guess we should count our blessings, because at least that's from the actual book. They all escape and are separated. But guess what? Nynaeve survived. Yay! And to be honest, this is probably the best episode of Season 1, as it's the closest to the source material, even if I feel they missed a good horror opportunity by cutting out, say, Mordeth. If I'm being honest here, the first 3 episodes of this season actually aren't horrible. I was disappointed by them in my first watch, but they are loosely following the books. The quality of the writing, acting, and production design, it may be far lower than I'd hoped, but it is still reasonably faithful to the novels, at least in the broad strokes. And I'm not trying to be unreasonable here, okay? I never expected Game of Thrones quality. Game of Thrones in its first 6 seasons, it's one of the best TV series ever made, all right? I'm not going to put it up to that standard. But I was at least hoping for something maybe Last Kingdom quality. And oh boy, was I hoping for too much. Last Kingdom is a good show, and it is a fraction of this show's budget. And it is considerably stronger in those categories of production design, acting, and writing. Maybe not visual effects, but it also didn't have to do like these big, grand, magical sequences. Yet for that first watch through, I had settled in by this point. I knew now it was not going to feel like more upper-end fantasy epic or historical epic. It was going to be more like low-end streaming or network TV fantasy, something in line with, say, Shannara. And okay, fine. Let's just try to enjoy it for what it is. At least it is following the books. And as long as it sticks to the story, I'm still going to find some way to enjoy it. But then episode 4 lost its goddamn mind. It went off the track and never came back. I wish I knew what they were thinking here. The first book is essentially a fantasy fugitive story, a big chase scene with our heroes trying to stay ahead of an enemy that's always nipping on their heels. In episode 4, they pump the brakes hard and never get any momentum again. Here we are stuck in a humdrum cave, all because it's cheap to shoot 3 women who are just standing there watching one dude in a cage. This episode was, to me, the breaking point of everything. It broke the wheel.
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
Moiraine and team are just kind of wandering through the woods when they coincidentally run into Leandrin, who has a false dragon with her. Now that is convenient. And convenience is actually a built-in narrative point within Wheel of Time. You just sort of have to have a Tar Valon with you, which, in this case, they do not. And so much of this is just setting up the price of the Warder Aes Sedai bond, when that could be explained in just like one sentence and not a full episode. Sorry, did I say 1 episode? I meant 3 episodes. They introduce entirely made-up characters with entire character arcs. And the frustrating thing here is all this stuff would have gotten covered naturally in the series anyways, because there are characters who have their partners die. I have never seen something so pointlessly added. Anyways, the false dragon, his name's Logain, and he's being brought in so that he can be cut off from the source so he can't use magic anymore. Logan has an army of about 15 people who decide to attack. And even though Leandrin says no army can beat 7 sisters.
No army can get past 7 full sisters.
And really, no army can beat 7 sisters? Apparently that's not true because the 15-man group ends up killing a bunch of Aes Sedai and their warders. That had to hurt her pride just a little bit. Now they've got Logain under what is called a shield so he can't use magic. But he gets around this little inconvenience by just using magic anyways. Again, don't ask me, alright? I don't know. Remember, none of this was in the books. Because of this, 3 of the Aes Sedai are very badly wounded, basically on the edge of death. Even Lan basically he's a goner. All right, he's done. But don't worry, because Nynaeve, a person completely untrained in magic, manages to heal them all of their mortal wounds. And gee, I hope that doesn't lower the stakes at all. Now the book makes it very clear that wounds like these, or death, cannot be healed. Even to the point that Rand, at the height of his powers, attempts to heal someone who's dead, and he nearly kills himself. Showing that they're able to heal something like this, it derails any stakes, because any death or near death can be a fake out, and almost everything is curable. And definitely don't want to ever heal death, because then your stakes, they're taken right off the table. But I'm sure this series, they'd never do that. No. Unfortunately, Nynaeve chooses to only bring back our main characters, so one of the Aes Sedai dies, and her sad boy warder becomes extra sad. While everyone else, they're starting to think, wait a minute here. Could Nynaeve be the dragon? Despite, again, this would break the story, and even the show acknowledges that this should be impossible because Nynaeve is too old. And on the downside, they also seem to completely remove that Nynaeve has to be actually angry when she uses magic. Again, she's Magic Hulk. The angrier she gets, the stronger she gets. It set a limit on one of their most powerful characters. But that's too interesting, so none of that here. The Lan and Nynaeve romance is also not great either. But I'm not going to be too critical of that because Robert Jordan was also pretty terrible at writing romance. Funny enough, the main reason Lan and Nynaeve's romance in the books is one of the better ones is simply because it was initiated off-page. Basically, the two characters vanish, and when they come back, they're already together. So Jordan didn't have to really begin that romance, which was one of his weak points. Here, they're trying to show it more organically and see them actually, kind of fall in love. But it's not really naturally built up, and there's not really much chemistry between them. What you want to see is that very emotional high of Nynaeve contrasted against the very, very reclusive stone face of Lan. It doesn't really click here, and the dialogue can be often cliche and pretty cringeworthy.
You're as beautiful as the sunrise.
And I am perfectly okay with them expanding on this relationship and showing it more. I'm just not convinced they were entirely successful. In this episode, it ends up leading to a long string of sad boy funerals. You get sad boy funeral in the hills. You get sad boy funeral at the White Tower. And you get sad boy funeral for sad boy. All this just to show that the Warder Aes Sedai bond is strong but has disadvantages. Why do we need all this? Okay, we got the point.
I know. I got it. I got the concept.
These all just seem like needless diversions. In the words of the Emperor's New Groove.
What's with the chimp and the bug? Can we get back to me?
And so, Perrin and Egwene, they're running away from wolves in one of the worst chase scenes ever shot. There's no sense of space, there's no sense of who's chasing them or how close they are. It's a mess. It's like a dude just running through the woods with a GoPro. Later, they try to start a fire in the middle of the day to keep the wolves away. Yeah, I'm sure that's gonna work real well, your tiny little fire in daylight. They try to get some sleep and then wake up to find it still in the middle of the day. I'm starting to think that they shot this the same day over a couple hours, and they either didn't wait for it to get dark or didn't bother to correct day for night in their color grading. Whoops.
I see them sitting down and coming up with a concept for the season, sending someone else to start writing, you to start writing, yours gets done. You tell them, we need you to finish your scenes that are taking place in the same place as this one because we got to have our film date next month. So they go film those 3 scenes written by 3 different people. The scripts are never done by the time they start filming. And that really bothers me because I can see it in their storytelling.
The next day, they meet the Tinkerers, and Egwene is convinced that the wolves, they led them there intentionally, despite the fact that they were chasing them from behind. Maybe they were herding wolves. This stuff with the Tinkerers, it is actually pretty accurate to the book, which is great. It's also boring as hell, and probably should have been left on the cutting room floor. Because the Tinkerers, they really don't even do anything until about book 4, and you could have reintroduced them there instead. But, shooting with a bunch of hippies in a caravan, that's cheap. So congrats, you made it in. And what exciting narrative developments happen from here? Well, they travel with them and then they're told that killing, well, guess what? Killing is actually bad. Think about it. Meanwhile, Rand and Mat, they arrive at what looks like an abandoned mine and they meet Sexy Tom. Now, Tom was with them for the whole journey in the book. Not Sexy Tom, but Old Man Tom, just regular Tom. This Tom, however, he needs to be hot enough to play some medieval rock ballads. He also needs to look shifty enough that he can steal from the boys and then return it later just to show he's not a bad guy. What a scene, guys. Thanks, writers. And where is his patchwork cloak? He wears a patchwork cloak. That's all you needed to do. One job. We actually do see the patches for about 0.2 seconds when he opens up his cloak and it shows it's right on the inside. You can't just have him wearing a patchwork cloak. We can't have Sexy Tom looking like a nerd. Rand meets this bartender here who tries to seduce him, I guess. This kinda happens in the book, but it was pretty short, It was just part of a chapter. Here, it takes up almost a full episode. We spend so much time developing out this no-name innkeeper, only then just to reveal she's a dark friend who betrays him. And, oh no, not her. If I'm comparing you to Robert Jordan and using him as the example for brevity, you've done something wrong. If you were going to invest time in a character and have this big reveal that this person is a dark friend, they could have done that with Paden Fane. Who is Paden Fane, you may be asking? How could you possibly forget? He had a whole 1 scene and 1 minute of screen time in the first episode. How could you possibly not remember that? I hope you were paying attention, because that short scene is going to be stupidly important later on. And this whole bartender seduction scene, it really did bring up a lot of questions for me. Like, how did she know Egwene braided her hair so that she then could try and imitate her? Keep in mind, Egwene's not with them. So how did she know that? Yeah, it is a plot point here. Was she following them and spying on them the whole time? How? She owns a tavern. When did she have time to do that while running the tavern? maybe someone just told her that Egwene had braids and she should imitate her. Who? Who did that and why? Why did they think that was so important? Anyways, the bartender then brilliantly locks Rand in a room with her and says, "Gotcha, now you're trapped, but okay, you're trapped too. You're locked in there with him."
I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
She then tells him, "Oh, but hold on, there's no way you can possibly break down that door." Oh, no, what? Never mind, there he goes. He's free. Now, there's a similar scene like this in the book where Rand, he literally blows up an entire building with a lightning bolt. But that would kind of give him away as the dragon. And remember, this show really needs to keep that a secret. So instead, they have him just gently push over a door that production design kind of didn't bolt in. It is the cheaper option, so I will give them that. Rand in the books, at this point, he's channeling actually pretty often. And it's not always obvious that it's him doing it. These instances are pretty much entirely cut to preserve the useless mystery. Let me be clear here, because Amazon doesn't seem to get it. There is nothing wrong with the audiences being ahead of your characters. Alfred Hitchcock built his entire career off this concept. I say that because they keep doing this. They keep thinking they need to shock and surprise people, and if they don't, people are just going to lose interest. Anyways, our little dark friend manages to catch up to Mat and Rand, and despite being half their size and having no magic powers, she's got them cornered, I guess. Oh no, not the little girl with the sword. You can't just both jump her at once. Anyway, she then picks this time to start monologuing at them. And this, of course, is the fastest track to reincarnation.
You sly dog! You got me monologuing! I can't believe it!
Tom catches her from behind and then decides to stay with the boys because he believes Mat can channel for no real reason. Mat certainly hasn't shown any signs that he can channel. I mean, somebody else has. The three take refuge at a farmhouse after a farmer threatens to shoot them just for being in the vague proximity of his land. Seems safe. Here, happy-go-lucky Mat, maybe or maybe not, murders an entire family because of the dagger. It's not really clear if it was him or the Fade that does it, because the Fade did show up later, so it's implied maybe it was the Fade. It doesn't matter, because it will never come up again. Tom stays behind to hold off the Fade as the boys escape. And bye, Tom. We hardly knew you. Meanwhile, Moiraine and friends arrive at Tar Valon, a city they never visited in the Eye of the World. And they're only here mostly so they can wander around cheap white halls for a few episodes. I hope you're seeing a pattern. It's almost like another show ate its entire budget. For the record, it's not like they had no money, okay? It still costs more than the first 2 seasons of Game of Thrones combined. You'd never be able to tell. The Rand band also makes it to Tar Valon, where they meet the Ogrier Loyal. They also see Logain being brought into town, and when he looks up and sees Mat, he begins laughing hysterically. Could this be? Could it be that Mat is the dragon? Or is he just laughing at the obvious person seated right next to it? Do they think their audience is stupid? Okay, Harry Potter did this exact same thing and did it better, and that was in a book for 10-year-olds. Perrin and Egwene are arrested by White Cloaks for no reason, who then interrogate them on if they can or cannot channel. Egwene goes from crying one minute and begging for their lives to the next threatening the questioner with retribution. Quite the turnaround there. This whole sequence, it's undercut because Perrin, in the novel, went into a berserker rage and killed 2 White Cloaks. Here, it lacks the same tension, and Perrin's sense of guilt. Because in the book, Perrin's aversion to violence does not come from fridging his wife for no reason, but because he, in just a violent rage, killed 2 men just brutally when he was out of control. He is fearful and disgusted by that inner violence. Instead, here, Perrin is tortured for nothing, and Egwene channels Perrin free. The questioner is completely shocked and taken aback by this, which I find hilarious because this is what he was testing for. What was he going to do if she actually was a fully trained Aes Sedai? I mean, she could have just lit him on fire. Great plan, you got him. You know, even though Egwene frees Perrin, Egwene then is the one to outright just murder the questioner. And you can bet she doesn't lose any sleep over it. Perrin's a little helpful though. He summons the tiniest of little baby wolves ever to help them. They're just so small and cute. Look at them. Look at these little guys. Nynaeve, she wasn't involved in this scene at all. Yet in the book, it's one of her first big moments where she gets to help rescue them. So let's start the timer here. Put 1 on the clock for a scene stolen by another character. Back at the White Tower, Nynaeve meets Liandrin, who explains the real reason she hates men. And it's because men still hold the power in the world, and they'll use it to oppress little girls. Now, here's a good case of breaking world building by projecting our world into a fantasy one. Keep in mind, at this point, women have held the power in this world for thousands of years. This entire conversation is just a projection of modern day politics that, regardless how you feel on them one way or another, it breaks the suspension of disbelief in this world, because it doesn't fit in with the history that we've been given. Nynaeve then finds Rand in the city thanks to Loial. Loial brings her to Rand because she matches the descriptions that Rand had given him. Now hold on here. Rand at this point has not seen Nynaeve since the Two Rivers and thinks she is dead. Why would he give Loial her description and have him find her? I got you on this one, writers. I got you. He wouldn't know. She shouldn't be there. The next episode is just continuing down the path of made-up stuff by introducing a flashback to a character we haven't even met yet. All it's really telling us, too, is that the Amyrlin's father was a fisherman. Great. And you could have avoided this just by having Suan annoyingly use endless fish metaphors. Okay? One of the best parts of her character in the book. Hashtag bring back the fishing metaphors, all right? Bring them back. The Amyrlin then interrogates Logan for a long scene, just for her to say, go to jail. You're going to jail.
Right to jail, right away. We have the best patients in the world. Because of jail.
She is also revealed to be Moraine's secret lover. And this is a choice that I actually don't mind that much. It is alluded to in the books, and I think losing the innuendo actually makes this stronger. And I like this relationship more than probably either of the two weird ones these two characters get into in the book. This feels more natural, and it fits for both of them. It was a change that I actually kind of liked. Suan and Moraine then have a long conversation that I clocked at 16 minutes that goes absolutely nowhere. Eventually, even Suan stops and asks, is there a point to all this? Why are we doing this? See what I mean about sucking the urgency out of this first season? They also discuss the possibility that all the 5 characters are the dragon somehow. How would that even work? Now, I'm not 100% on it, but I'm pretty sure that's not how reincarnation works. And it certainly isn't how it works in Jordan's world. Then Suan says that she had a vision of the dragon facing the Dark One at the Eye of the World. Now that sounds like a great premonition, very helpful, if not for the fact that isn't even what happens in this show. It's just here to get Moraine to the Eye of the World. The Amyrlin then exiles Moraine from the tower, for reasons unclear to anyone. I guess so she can go to the Eye of the World without raising any suspicion? I have no idea. This is all treated like a super dramatic moment, but call me crazy. This is all fake, right? I mean, Moraine's like crying real tears, but this isn't real. Suan can revoke this at any time once the mission is done. Why is this being treated like Frodo just blew up in the volcano, okay? It's not real. No one cares. It's like over-dramatic music and everything. Moraine is then able to locate Rand and Mat. Again, don't ask me how. She then cures Mat of the dagger's hold on him. And whoa, it was all because of the dagger? What? I guess he's not the dragon at all. That's crazy. They then use the Waygate to traverse to the north. Mat stays behind because there's a pandemic that happened in the real world and the actor wouldn't come back or something, forcing the character to remain behind and sit out the climax and leave him alienated for the start of the next season. And recast. That too. In the context of the show, what would they have done if Mat ended up being the dragon? Great plan, Moraine. In this case, I can't really blame the writers of the show or the showrunner. This was just a bad hand they were dealt. I can, however, blame them for everything that comes next. The next episode probably starts with the best scene in the entire season, where Rand's biological mother is fighting on the slopes of Dragonmount, and then meets up with Tam, his adoptive father. It's pretty well done, and likely the best action scene in the whole show so far. Not that that's saying much. Most of the action so far has been really inconsistent CGI with Trollocs that sometimes looks like janky video game models. And it's just them getting hit by like misty particle effects. They make it through the ways and arrive at Thaldara, and prepare to head for the Eye of the World to confront the Dark One. Unfortunately, they say anyone who goes to the Eye that isn't the dragon will, I guess, just drop dead for some reason. I mean, Moraine didn't, so I'm not really sure why she thinks this or says this. She also says they have to defeat the Dark One while he is still weak. But he's not weak, okay? He's just imprisoned, okay? They locked him away. Do the writers even know what's going on? And for newcomers at this point, you may be asking yourself, what is the Eye of the World? Now, admittedly, it was kind of abstract and confusing in the book as well, so I can understand them changing it, except for the fact they changed it to something just as confusing and just as abstract. In the novel, it's this pool of male magic that's guarding the seal of the Dark One's prison and the magic horn that everyone's been hunting. Here, it's, I think, just a seal, or it's Ishmael's prison? I have no idea. I don't know, and honestly, I don't think they know either. Moraine, at this point, is mad that Matt left and decides to sick the red Aja on him for some reason, which feels very, very out of character for her. Again, what if he is the dragon? What if you go fight the Dark One at the Eye of the World and you don't even have the dragon with you? Or what if you just turned over the dragon to the Reds, who are then going to, steal him and cut him off from magic? Now you're screwed. We also meet Min here, who was moved to Faldara. She tells Moraine that Suan will be her downfall. I'm not really sure what that means because that didn't happen in the book. She's never really her downfall in any way. Min fails to discern who is the dragon, so everyone gets in this big fight about it. They even toss in that dumb love triangle again, where Nynaeve gets to lecture the two boys over fighting for Egwene. And why? I just want to know why. Why is this here? You just gotta have a love triangle, I guess. I guess it's just required. There are love triangles in the Wheel of Time. They just come later, all right? You can't be a little patient. And finally, the show anticlimactically reveals that Rand is the dragon. Whoa! What are the odds? All because he was adopted, he could channel the whole time, and the Ways told him so. He finally comes clean to Moraine, and they head for the Eye. Again, this is basically the reverse of the books, where instead of the readers the entire time knowing that Rand is the dragon, here Rand knows the entire time and the viewers are in the dark. But it also serves to make Rand pretty selfish, because if he had some suspicion or knew all along that he could channel, he was kind of putting his friends in danger for nothing. And for the new episode, we finally get the flashback to the original dragon and the Age of Legends. And is it that awesome, cool, cold open from the book? No, you still gotta wait for that, all right? Here we see the dragon who, for some reason, is being called the Dragon Reborn when he's the dragon. The new dragon's the Dragon Reborn. I think they missed that. Again, do the writers know what they're writing? Anyways, he's discussing with a female Aes Sedai the best method to take care of the Dark One. They're kind of just sitting on couches and pleasantly talking to each other over tea. It's all very civil and, again, really kind of bland. At this point, the male and female factions should be in heated disagreement, and the world should be on the brink of destruction. Here, everything looks fine. I mean, doesn't look too bad. Better than fine, actually. Everything looks great. They're utopia. It's looking pretty good. I also like how the writers just made the dragon a complete idiot. In this version, they're talking as if they know exactly what will happen if they go to face the Dark One, and that all the males will go mad. It's not like some surprise sneak attack. This also makes the female Aes Sedai 100% correct in not going, instead of there being that layer of uncertainty on both sides. And it chips away at the central theme of people working together in harmony. Anyways, back to the modern day. Rand then asks Moraine if she can teach him how to channel, and she says she doesn't have the time to do it, and it will make him go mad faster. And no, again, women cannot teach men how to channel because they use different magic sources, and they can't see each other's magic. As they say, a bird cannot teach a fish how to fly. This is an example that's used again and again. This is all just another sign that they eliminated the core of the magic system for this first season. Moraine, she then lazily tells him he doesn't need training before he goes to fight an evil god, because she once stopped a bully without training, so just do that. Okay then, that is a bold strategy. The Dark One then appears with his terrible CGI mask and takes it off to reveal some random dude in a suit. Are we supposed to think this lawyer-looking dude is the Dark One? Or are we supposed to know that this is not the Dark One because he took off the mask? I'm not sure. It would have made for a more shocking reveal if he removed the mask and everyone saw that he was Ishmael, and if they had actually seen him beforehand. Now, if only there was some sort of opening scene, a flashback of some sort, that could have pre-established him. Drat. During this confrontation, we get yet another death fake out. Get used to these, they just keep coming, so just never believe a death when you see it, because it's never going to happen, I guess. So shocking. Moraine gives Rand a totem to help defeat the Dark One in their final battle. The Dark One then decides now is the right time to attack Tarwin's Gap, and out the heroes rush to face the enemy. Quite literally. They decide to leave the comfort of their fortified position to face the enemy. You can't just, channel lightning bolts from atop a wall? That seems like a safer spot to sit. The CGI for this battle is exceptionally bad, and you may have COVID to thank for this. They were put under lots of restraints for the end of this series. I think the Raptor Godzilla scene in the 1998 Godzilla looked more convincing than these things. Just like the baby Godzillas, they look like these copied and pasted models that are reusing the exact same animation loops. Anyways, these freakish ones and zeros then attack the fortified position with no siege equipment or strategy whatsoever, yet still overwhelm it and somehow kill a handful of characters who actually aren't supposed to be dead yet. So actually, I'd say it went really well for them. Rand and Moiraine then make it to the Eye of the World, and everything here is so just kind of disappointing. I mean, there's no other way to say it. You don't get the Green Man, you don't get a battle with the Forsaken, you don't get Rand finally unveiling his true power as the dragon, and you don't get the surprise reveal that they've discovered the horn. What you get instead is just kind of Ishmael pulling Rand into this boring vision of his perfect happy life, and a perfect world that the Dark One can create. Now this is actually a scene in the book. Unfortunately, it's part of a larger final battle with the Dark One. Moving it here feels out of place and will likely undercut Rand having to make that exact same choice in the future. Unless they're going to do something completely different, which it's this show. I don't, first of all, think they're going to make it to there. And second of all, even if they do, they're going to change it all because that's what they've been doing so far anyways. Here, all we really get is Rand having to make the choice to let Egwene go and choose her own path. I guess that was supposed to be his character arc for this season. But even before this vision, he had already expressed and said he was going to let Egwene make her own way and make her own choice. He's already let her go multiple times. This means nothing. It's not like some big character revelation for him. Ishmael then permanently cuts Morgaine off from her magic. This never happens in the book because curing this is impossible until we get near the very, very end of the series. To have her cure it in the next season really undercuts one of the biggest dangers in the book, especially the risk for Rand. Being able to cure being still this early undercuts all that threat. Again, you're just chipping away at any stakes. Why should I care if anything happens to anyone when you can resurrect them or cure them of anything? It's like someone playing through a Wheel of Time video game with cheat codes. Rand then uses the totem to incinerate Ishmael. I'm not sure how Ishmael, he's back for the next season. I'm not sure how he survived that. He is just supposed to be a man who can channel, but he shouldn't be able to survive, being turned into just powder, like he got snapped by Thanos.
You should have gone for the head.
Rand, however, he's convinced, for good reason, he just saved the world and decides to just kind of bum out. Moiraine lets him go despite suspecting that this wasn't the final battle. And no, you think? What clued you in on that? I don't know, maybe nothing from the prophecy of the dragon coming to pass yet? And yeah, there's this whole prophecy of things Rand has to accomplish before he can face the Dark One. She doesn't even try to catch him after realizing this. I mean, he only just left. He couldn't have gotten far. She could just run out there. Hey, Rand, wait, I made a terrible mistake. Come back.
I've made a huge mistake.
In Faldara, it's revealed that the Horn of Valir was in Faldara the whole time. This is huge. Now, you may be asking, what is the Horn of Valir? I mean, it hasn't even really been mentioned. The show really doesn't go very far into establishing what it is or why it's important. It's a legendary lost weapon that everyone's hunting. And here it is, just conveniently buried in the tiles of the palace. I really want to know why Faldara never made any use of it before now, considering it has the power to literally summon the dead to fight for you. I guess Faldara was just saving it for a rainy day. But who should show up at this very moment? Well, Paden Thane, of course. I hope you remember him from seeing him only that one time. What a shocking turn of events for this character you totally remembered. He also now has the Black Dagger. You may be asking yourself, how did he get it? Now, why would you want to know something like that? The last time we saw it, it was with Matt. No idea. It's the biggest plot hole of this season. Maybe it's answered in season 2. I'm getting to it. Okay, I'm forcing myself to watch this just for you guys, so I'll find out. But anyways, he has it now, somehow, and kills Loyal with it. Oh, I'm sorry. Again, he doesn't die. It's a fake out. It's supposed to be the smallest scratch from the dagger can kill almost anyone. Later in the series, it'll be used to cripple a major character for life. Once again, this show is dedicated to stripping away any stakes. Nynaeve and Egwene decide to help a random Aes Sedai to channel and defeat the evil army. And what do you know? They managed to take out pretty much the entire force. One Aes Sedai and 2 girls who are completely untrained. What do you even need armies for? This was Rand's big moment, and it feels just taken from him. It's where he reveals to everyone that he is the dragon. This undercuts one of his biggest and best moments. And Rand, it seems like he's just not getting any chance to really shine, and that's because he's just been put at the back of the line to preserve a stupid mystery. However, in the process of defeating the evil army with magic, Nynaeve is burned out. Her last words to Egwene were, "To be a woman is to be alone." And that's That's real inspiring stuff there, Nynaeve. Way to go out on that note. Fortunately for her, though, Egwene, a character with no training, knows how to heal her from death. And there goes our stakes, out the bottom of the barrel and straight into the Earth's molten core. How are we supposed to care about a little thing like death even, when an untrained character can just instantly resurrect someone? Thus, Sean Chan show up and decide to, wipe out one little girl on a beach with a tsunami. That seems a little overkill. What did she do to you? Anyways, the credits roll. The end. Yay, it's over. With that, our show is ending on the lowest of low notes. I don't think there's a worse episode than this last one. I get the need for adaptations to change things. I understand it. Lord of the Rings changed and cut a lot. The new Dune movies also just changed and cut a lot. But they still kept the core of the story, the themes that made everything work together. They still felt like they brought the characters and world to life. Wheel of Time never feels like that. It feels like the showrunner and writers were more interested in their ego and improving on this story. And by doing so, only succeed in removing the stakes, simplifying the world and making it more generic, stripping the characters of satisfying arcs, and removing core themes and religious inspiration. These are all changes for the far, far worse. And it makes everything just feel like it's less of itself. It's another run-of-the-mill, throwaway, disposable fantasy show. You never get a strong sense of the blending of European medieval and Asian influences. It's just the recognizable stuff they kept, the stuff that you can look at and go, been there, done that. I can't help but feel that there was a willing and intentional disconnect between the story Robert Jordan created and the one that the writers here wanted to tell. This is not another turning of the wheel or some alternate universe as some of the fans have liked to try and paint it. It's just a bad adaptation. There was a way to find a happy medium here, a way to bring in new fans and old fans alike while remaining true to Robert Jordan's vision. Knowing what to add and knowing what to cut is a big part of making these fantasy series work. The sad thing is that Wheel of Time likely had this very, very just narrow window, and it'll probably never have a shot like it again. So I get why a lot of fans have the attitude of just take what you can get. You're probably not going to get anything else. But that's all I have. If you'd like to see those other seasons, please let me know by liking and subscribing. That will send me a message that I should continue this series. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive. As always, keep those reels turning. Thank you.